तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्य श्रवण कीर्तनं हृद्यन्तस्य अभद्राणि विधुनोति सुरसतां नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी सर्वशास्त्राब्धिपीयूष सर्ववैदिकसत्फल सर्वसिद्धान्तरत्नाढ्य सर्वलौकिकदृक्पद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवतो प्रभु कलिद्वन्द्वोदितादित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानन्दपाठाय प्रेमवर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेवाय श्रीकृष्णाय नमोस्तुते मद एक बंधु मद संगेन मद गुरुन् मद महाधन मन्निष्ठारक भाग्य मद आनंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधु तादा इन अति नीचोतरता करा हा नामुंचा कदाचिन्मां प्रेम न हृत कंथयो स्फुरः। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Okay, Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. Nice to see all of you. So those are okay. You can turn on your video cameras to be more more personal discussion. Okay, so we are in third canto, 26th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, fundamental principles of material nature. Right. So in this chapter, in the previous chapter, we saw how Kapila had explained about devotional service. The whole emphasis was on devotional service, and then at the end of the chapter, he made the point: "Etavan eva lokesmin pumsam nishraya Sodaya Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Manomaya Arpitastiram. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. So he concluded that finally he's recommending that we all engage in Tivra Bhakti, right? Intense devotional service or unalloyed devotional service. And then Manomaya Arpita Stiram, by offering your mind to me. Now, this chapter started with Devoti asking the question, okay, I know about the mind. I'm satisfied with your answer about how I can get out of illusion, how I can get out of false ego, but I am also curious to know about Gyan, right? Gyan. So, so and then, so Kapiladev starts off. So today we are going to continue our discussion on the Sankhya philosophy or Gyan Yoga. And before we start, because it is a technical aspect, it's good to remember the point that at the starting of this chapter, Kapila Dev has made the point that what is the benefit of understanding this knowledge? The first thing he said is one will get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, you know. And even for us as devotees, yes, we are on the path of bhakti, but this knowledge which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if we are understanding it, we are actually, practically seeing that, oh, this is how this material nature is. This is also because every verse of the Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. So though this is a section of Gyan, Sankhya Yoga, still, for us as bhakti yogis, when we understand this aspect, it will actually help us get free from the three modes of material nature. The second aspect is what? One gets Atma Darshanam. One actually can attain the perfection of self realization. And what is the third? Third glory is Hridaya Granthi Bhedanam. Right? So we discussed all this last time that the knot in the heart, very strong knot, which is actually because of our attachments lifetime after lifetime, starting with our attraction to the opposite sex. It is just like a thread which is knotted again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and like big knot, right? But all that knot can be cut off by this knowledge, right? So even for us, while we are studying this wisdom of the Sankhya philosophy, we can actually meditate on these 3 points that Kapil Dev is actually saying that by this knowledge we'll get free from the merge, we'll get self-realization, and third, the hard knot in our knot will be actually cut away. Right? And also another point, which is not here, Kapil Dev is not making the point, but for us, when we are approaching this knowledge, what should be our uh, you know what should be our conception? What should we think? See, that is one aspect of the technical aspect of Sankhya. But another aspect is while we are actually studying this, we are directly connecting with Kapil Dev. So we are having direct association of Kapila Dev by studying this. You know. So that association is what is really so important. Imagine you're associating with Krishna. He's that Kapil Dev is directly incarnation of Krishna. So that association is the key. So many times, I've experienced this that one may sit in a class and say that, oh, I have already heard this pastime. And it's like, okay, Damodar Leela. Every Kartik we hear it. And if we actually just say that, oh, I've already heard this and we don't pay attention, then what are we avoiding? What are we missing out? We are missing out on the association of that speaker. It does not matter if it is the same thing that we are hearing again, but what we are really getting is the devotion in the heart of the speaker is actually being transferred onto us. Right. So similarly, when we are reading this, we are directly association with we are getting the direct association with Kapila Dev, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of God. Right. So even though the knowledge may be technical and we say like, oh, this is not my, I want to, go to simpler sections, or I may want to go hear more Leela or Dashavatars, etc., etc. But the point is, we should remember that we are having direct association with Kapila Dev. We are sitting in his association and we are hearing from him. So that's how we approach this, right? So in the first section of this, what are the three aspects that Kapil Dev has discussed? Three aspects and the connection between them, which is actually the basis or foundation of Sankhya philosophy. What is that?
To know who we are.
Okay. Beyond that, what are the three aspects? The basis of Sankhya philosophy is understanding these three and the interactions between these three.
Purusha, Prakriti, and
And us, right? Us, Jiva,
Jiva.
Jiva.
right?
Jiva.
Yeah. So basically, thank you. So Purusha, first Kapila explains who is Purusha. Then he talks of the interaction between Purusha and Prakriti. So all these three interactions we discussed. What is the interaction between Purusha and Prakriti? Right? What is the interaction between Jiva and Prakriti? What is the interaction between Jiva and Purusha? So this triangle, right? Because on top is Purusha, right? So if you consider a triangle, top is Purusha. Here you have Jiva, you have Prakriti. Both of them are energies of the Lord, right? So if you consider a triangle like this, right? So on top you have Purusha, and then one here you have Prakriti, and here you have Jiva. And both are energies. So what is the interactions between all these three is the basic foundation of Sankhya philosophy. Right? Okay, so we discussed this last time. Then, after this entire discussion, then Devotee actually said, okay, I understood this. Now I want to hear more about the characteristics of Prakriti and Purusha, the interaction between Prakriti and Purusha. I want to hear more about this, right? How does the Purusha interact with Prakriti? Does the Purusha interact with Prakriti?
Yes. To the Pradhan.
Okay, to the Pradhan. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So, how does the Purusha? So, one way the Purusha is actually aloof from that interaction. So, the interaction is one way not direct, but through the glance, through the glance, right? Because when the Purusha wants to directly interact with Prakriti, he becomes who? Lord Shiva, Shambhu. Right? Shambhu. So Shambhu directly interacts with Prakriti. But that glance, he interacts with Prakriti through the glance. So we'll read about that aspect today. That how does the Lord interact with Prakriti and how is the Prakriti set into motion and how from the Prakriti, all the elements that we see around us, they all come into manifestation. Right? So often in this section, we'll see Prabhupada compare this to the union of man and woman, right? So the man actually impregnates the woman. So just like the Lord glances, and then what does he impregnate? The jivas. So similarly, the man impregnates the woman, and then the child is. Anyway, so we'll come to that. We'll come to that. So let me just go back to we were at text number, I think 14 we read. So basically, up to this point, what do you read? We read. Let's just quickly read the translations from text 10 to 14. Okay, so just one of you can read. Okay, Vrindavan Vilasamati, would like to
Babuji, which verse we are starting from?
just 10 to 14, just translations, Mataji.
10 to 14 translation. Okay.
We already
Text
discussed
10.
up to 14. Yeah, go ahead.
Text 10. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state and is called Pradhan. It is called Prakriti when in the manifested stage of existence.
Right, so first is difference between Pradhan and Prakriti. What is Pradhan? Unmanifested, in the sense the modes are present but not active. Not active. Right? And then what is Prakriti? When the modes become active, that becomes Mahat Tattva and then the elements of Prakriti. Okay. Everyone, you have to like a little bit. Today is technical section, so you have to wake up from your Sunday morning and focus, because you have to follow the section, right? Okay, next 11 month. Good. Now yes, you can go till 14.
The aggregate elements, namely the five gross elements, the five subtle elements, the four internal senses, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and the five outward organs of action are known as the pradhan.
So we read about Pradhan, and then uh, when the Pradhan has the three modes, right? We discuss is Pradhan Brahman? No. Is Pradhan Brahman? No. Why is Pradhan not Brahman? We read in one of Prabhupada's purpose, he actually makes this point. That why is Pradhan not considered as Brahman? I just made the point. Pradhan
Because it is made up of the three material modes,
exactly.
and that material mode is in turn controlled by the Purusha. So it is not.
Yeah, very nice. So the Pradhan has the three modes. But Brahman, does he have the three modes of material nature? No. Right? So that's the difference. So Pradhan has his three modes, and because of the agitation, when the three modes become active, then that becomes the cause of Prakriti, right? The cause of Prakriti. So Mahatattva and all the elements. So what are the elements? That's what we are reading. So we know there are 24, and today we'll read 25th also. What are 24 elements? This one everyone should know. First, we start off with five gross elements. What is it? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then five subtle elements, four internal senses, five senses for gathering knowledge, five senses for action, right? Action. And all these together, all these aggregate together when they are not separated, right? That is pradhan. When they are manifested, then they become mahatattva and prakriti. Okay. So pradhan, mahatattva, prakriti. These terms are okay. Please respond so I know that you're following. Okay. Okay, textual. Vrindavan. Mhm.
There are five gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and there are also five subtle elements: smell, taste, color, touch, and sound.
Right, so five and five. Five gross, five subtle. Okay, next 13.
The senses for acquiring knowledge and the organs for action number 10, namely the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, and the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the active organ for speaking, and the active organs for working, and those for traveling, generating, and evacuating.
Right, so these 10. So we read 5 and 5 in the previous, plus 10. So up to 20 we have come. Okay, 14.
The eternal
The internal.
The internal subtle senses are experienced as having four aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinctions between them can be made only by different functions since they represent different characteristics.
Right. So when we talk of the 4, so everyone is okay up to 20, right? Everyone can list those 20. Now, after those 20, what are the remaining 4? They are the subtle. They are internal subtle senses. So that is mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Mind, intelligence, ego, contaminated. And in our body, where is the mind?
It is not physical, Prabhu.
It is subtle.
Exactly. So that's the point. It is subtle. Sometimes we say mind is the brain. I mean, it is subtle. So hence, Bhagavatam is making the point, how can you differentiate between these? Only by their functions. Only by their functions. So hence, today's section will be reading about, okay, mind, these are the functions. And by these characteristics or functions, we know that this is the aspect of the mind. Intelligence, this is this. Consciousness, these are the characteristics. So we'll read all that today. Right?
So,
So that
Prabhu,
is,
in this case, if
yeah.
we compare this to the aspect to the horse, right, and the chariot.
Yeah.
So we have the mind, the intelligence. We know what that is, and consciousness is probably a symptom of the soul, right?
Yes.
So, what is ego in that picture? Where does the ego stand?
Yeah. The point of the living entity identifying with the chariot. That's the ego. See, again, it's subtle. So how can we make it know about it? Through its function. So that false identification, like, okay, in chariot, you mentioned chariot. So someone is riding the chariot and he's thinking, I am this chariot.
Okay,
That false identity is this. Like how we think, I am this body.
okay,
So
right.
that aspect is false ego.
Okay. So I am the body that is being thought of by the soul, right? In that case, it's not the mind or the intelligence, it's the soul which is
Contaminated consciousness, chitta.
okay.
Contaminated consciousness, chitta.
So
So,
the soul doesn't think, or the soul doesn't play a part in that.
I mean, see, as without the soul, there is no life. There is no consciousness. I mean,
Right,
without the soul, it is dead matter, just like this pencil. I mean, there is nothing.
right.
But the soul has to be there, but the energy of the soul or direct symptom of the soul is consciousness. So we'll read about that. So
Okay.
let's wait on that, Prabhu. So we'll come to that point, how the consciousness, actually in this purport, in 14 purposes, when pure consciousness is polluted by material contamination, and when identification with the body becomes prominent, one is said to be situated under false ego. So right
Right.
there, Prabhupada is answering your question. When pure, so the soul is always pure, right? So
Mm.
when the soul's pure consciousness is polluted by material contamination. So Prabhupada gives the example that when rain drops, as such, they're pure.
Mm.
But as soon as they come in contact with earth, they become muddy. The
Right.
water becomes muddy, right? So
Mm.
similarly, the consciousness is pure, but as soon as it comes in contact with material modes of nature, then the material contamination comes. And because of that contamination, the consciousness becomes polluted. So that pure consciousness, the clear water becomes muddy. So pure consciousness becomes polluted. And because of that, then we identify with the body, and that is the influence of false ego.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, getting it?
Yeah, I'm getting. So but still, it's the soul which is, though it's the consciousness is playing the role, it's the soul which is actually playing the.
Probably your voice is a little bit like, yeah, I think if you change your angle, it changes.
Okay, so how about now?
Yeah, yeah, good, bro, good. Yeah.
Okay. So though it is the consciousness, but which is playing a major role, but it is the soul which is which is making an influence on the consciousness, right?
I mean, soul and consciousness is just like fire and heat, as an example.
Hmm.
Can you separate heat from fire?
No.
No. Similarly, consciousness, soul means consciousness.
Okay. Right.
Soul means
So,
consciousness. It's just
so
like
basically,
if you turn like a bulb, and let's say the power is always there, like there is no switch to turn it off. Bulb
right.
means always light.
Right.
So that way
Yeah.
we can consider soul, which is 10,000 the size of the hair, tip of the hair,
Right.
that has this consciousness, that energy, which
Right.
spreads all through the body.
Right. So that means the soul is not always, it's not a sleeping, it's not always sleeping. It has, it takes decisions basically, right? Based on which the consciousness is reacting to that.
The only thing the soul does is desires.
Right.
Because we
Okay.
have free will, we'll desire. So
Okay.
our only choice is, do we desire to enjoy this material nature? Do you want to interact with Prakriti with the mood of being the enjoyer or controller?
Hmm.
Or you want to serve Krishna? Only two things. It's like
Right.
zero or one, like digital. You want to be serve Maya or serve Krishna? Serve Maya or serve Krishna. That's the only
Right.
thing the soul desire. And based on the desire, if he wants to, okay, serve Krishna, that's a different aspect. But if he wants to serve Maya,
Hmm.
enjoy, control the material nature, then based on what modes he's associated with, Sattva, Raja, Tama, based
Hmm.
on those modes, then he will interact with the material nature in that way. In the
Right.
sense, if someone wants to enjoy and he's predominantly connected with the mode of goodness, how will he enjoy? For an example, he'll say, oh, I will enjoy by taking a walk in the nature.
Hmm.
Right? And if he's connected with passion, how will that enjoy, that desire come out? It is all like, that's why we say we are controlled by the modes of nature. So if we are controlled by the mode of passion, then how will that desire to enjoy come out? It will come out by, let's say, buying new things, right? You say, okay, I'll buy this and become happy. And what about ignorance? You say like, oh, too cold, I'll sleep, and that way I'll enjoy. So based on the modes, the desire to enjoy material nature is there, right? So it's zero or one. So when that desire to enjoy material nature, depending on what mode and the combination of the modes, that's how he's going to act in this material world.
Thank you,
Okay,
Prabhu.
we'll
Nice.
read further and then, more we'll be talking about this point. So let's continue with text 15. I think
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
So you are saying that the free will is coming from the soul,
Yes.
correct? Yeah, right.
So Jiva, Krishna gives, soul means free will.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So Arundhati, do you want to, at least for the first few, because Radharika, she's not so well, so she cannot do Sanskrit. So you can do the Sanskrit for first few, and then we'll ask someone else to continue. Right? So you do the Sanskrit for first few verses, and translation will continue as it is. So translation will continue. First is on the list is
Sure, Prabhuji. So shall I start from the
15.
15? Okay. एतावान् एव सङ्ख्यातो ब्राह्मणः सगुणस्यः सन्निवेशो मया प्रोक्तो यः कालः पञ्चविंशकः. Translation: all these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element, which is known as time, is counted as the 25th element.
Right. So 2 points are mentioned in this. Etaman ekas eva sankhya. So we are reading of sankhya. Sankhya actually means what? To count. Right. So what we have counted as 24, that is what? Is that Brahman? I just made the point that Pradhan is different from Brahman because Brahman has no modes. But it is because Pradhan is a reflection of Brahman, it is called Brahmana with Guna. Right? So hence it is so Prabhupada says qualified Brahmana. Right? So Brahmana Sagunasya. Brahmana with Guna is actually known as this, right? So these all 24 elements together are known as enumerated Brahman or Brahmana with Guna, right? Indeed, Sannivesha Maya Prokta. And these are all arranged by me. Like Krishna is actually doing all this, and Prokta, I'm speaking all this to you. Of these, so that's the first part. And then second part of this verse is saying, of these, ya, last line you see, ya kalaha pancha vishmakaha. Pancha means what? 5. Vishmaka, 20. Right? So 25th element of these is time. Okay. 25th element. So 24 everyone got. Now 25th is time. Now who is time?
Krishna.
Krishna. So exactly that's why in this verse say all this arrangement is done by me. How is Krishna doing all these 24 elements? Through the agency of time. Okay, so now next few verses we'll read about time. So in this purport, Prabhupada makes Sarvam Khalva Idam Brahma. Everyone has heard this before? If you talk to any Mayavadi, they just say this. Sarva Khalva Idam Brahma. That everything is Brahman. There is nothing other than Brahman. I am Brahman. Yes, actually we are true. Aham Brahmasmi. Right? And then the Lord is Brahman. So we are same. You know. Sarva Khalam Idam. Everything is Brahman. We accept. But there is a difference between Brahman and Parabrahman. That the Mayavadis don't accept, right? Sarva Khalam Idam Brahma. So there is no existence beyond Brahman. Everything is Krishna's energies. Everything is Krishna's energy. Parasya Brahmana Shakti. Everything emanates from Brahman. So Brahman, when you mix with the three gunas, it is called Saguna Brahman. And the Brahman, what we talk of as the effulgence of Lord Krishna, that is what? Nirguna Brahman. Right? So Mayavadi also use this and say Nirguna Brahman means what? Means it is just light. There is nothing beyond that. Right? But Nirguna Brahman means no material guna. That does not mean there is some spiritual qualities are not there. Beyond Brahman, we have Krishna. We have all the Vishnu form. So there are variety there. There is variety there. But it is not, it is called Nirguna because that guna is not material. Right? So everyone can differentiate Saguna Brahman, Nirguna Brahman. Right? Okay. So next, text 16.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhavam Paurusham.
Yeah, Vamshi, go for it.
Sorry, bro. Here Brahman refers to the Krishna or Lord Brahma, bro. I
No,
was saying it's Brahman, Krishna.
Not Brahma. This has nothing to do with Brahma, the four-headed Brahma.
Yeah.
Brahman means Krishna, spiritual actually. When you say Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. That means what? I am not this body, I am spirit soul. So it is actually, everything is actually spiritual one way, because all energy of the Lord,
Okay.
right? Is this pencil material or spiritual?
It's a material. It's material. It does not have a
Okay,
consciousness.
okay. Now, okay. So generally we'll say that this is material. But when this pencil is used in Krishna's service,
Yeah.
like Prabhupada gives the example of microphone, right? He's
Mm.
speaking and saying, because this microphone is used in Krishna's service, it's
Yeah.
connected to Krishna. So similarly, when this pencil is used in Krishna's service, it is one way spiritual. So when we say Sarvam Khalva Idam Brahma, everything is Brahman, in the sense that yes, actually everything is connected to Krishna. There is nothing outside of Krishna. What is Maya? When we see this separate without its connection to Krishna, it is Maya.
Mm.
When we see anything without its connection to Krishna, it's Maya. But actually, everything is Sarva Khalam Idam Brahman. Right?
Yes.
That's the main point. So
It's like,
Brahman, nothing to do with forehead Brahma. It is
Yeah.
spiritual.
yes,
Thank
like Prabhuji, like Brahma, Paramatmiti iti Bhagavana, like,
Yes.
yeah, that.
Yeah. So Brahman, everything is spiritual. Okay. Okay. So go ahead, Arindam.
प्रभावं प्रभावं पौरुषं प्राहुः कालमेके यतो भयम् अहङ्कारविमूढस्य कर्तुः प्रकृतिमीयुषः.
Translation. Who's next? Yeah.
So the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature.
So next few verses is basically going to talk about this time factor, right? So let me just share my screen. There's a very nice verse that Prabhupada often quotes. I'm going to discuss that. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 11 to 37. Okay, everyone can see the screen? Yeah. Okay, so what does this verse say? Prabhavam Paurusham Prahur, right? So the influence, the prabhav of the Paurusham, of the Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is actually experienced through Kala. Kalam. Prahu, Kalam. So through Kala, we experience the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how is that influence experienced by us? Yata Bhayam, by in the aspect of fear. Fear of what? Fear of death. Like how Prabhupada often says that if someone does not accept God, then God will come to him in the form of cruel death. At the time of death, when death comes, because of the influence of time, at that time he cannot say. That's why they say that no one is an atheist in a cremation ground. Because everyone goes to a cremation there and everyone will get so sober that, oh, this is going to happen to me. You know. But after they leave, then it's like, oh, this is not going to happen to me. It may happen, but I have a very long time, right? So, but it's all the influence of time causes that fear of death. Right? Ahankara vimudasya kartu prakritim ishwar. The individual soul, because of ahankar, false ego, right? Because of the influence of false ego, we are identifying ourselves with the body, and hence we have the fear of death. So if that false ego is converted to real ego, will we have fear of death? No, right? We'll become spiritual, right? And for the Atman, there is no question of that, isn't it? They mentioned this last time that there was this video posted in groups about Bhattu Gopal Prabhu making this point that once Prabhupada was actually saying, for a devotee, there is no fear of that. And to actually clarify that, he said, for a devotee, at the time of death, he just closes his eyes, just like sleep. Sleep, when you sleep, we close our eyes. And then he opens his eyes, and Prabhupada does his eyes like wide, and he says, Vaikuntha. That is for a devotee. He closes his eyes just like as if he's sleeping at the time of death, opens his eyes, right there, Vaikuntha. That is for a devotee. So there is no fear of that because he knows Krishna is there, he will take care. I don't need to worry. Right? But those who are under the influence of ahankar, vimudasya, they are bewildered by ahankar, deluded by ahankar, and kartu prakritim yusha, they have contacted this material nature. For them, they are always subjected to fear of death, and that is because of the time factor, and the time factor is actually the influence of the Supreme Personality of God. Okay, now this verse Prabhupada quotes here, 11 to 37, very nice verse. So, bhayam, fear, bhayam dvitiya means in something other, right? So, dvitiya means two, right? So, in something other than the Lord, right? Abhiniveshata. If we are absorbed in anything other than the Lord, right? In dvitiya, and then what happens? Abhiniveshata. Ishat apetasya. Because of turning away from Ishaha. Isha is who? Ishopanishad. Ishaha means the Lord. Because of turning away from Krishna, what happens? We become absorbed in something else, Dvitiya, right? And then what happens? Viparyosmiti. And why does this happen? Because of misidentification. We forget, asmriti means we forget the Lord, right? And as soon as we turn away from Lord, right, we become absorbed in that Dvitiya aspect. And what happens? What is that? Maya. Maya. And by the illusionary energy, okay, so basically, and that causes this aspect of fear. So Prabhupada translates, fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in Maya, right? So when we turn away from the Lord, right, we turn away and become absorbed in anything other than the Lord, then that means we are under the influence of Maya. And that Maya causes the fear in the living entity because then, because of that Maya, he identifies with this material body. Right? Therefore, this verse continues. He forgets that I am a eternal servant of the Lord. Therefore, what happens? Therefore, what should one do? An intelligent person, right? So going back to the verse, Buddha, an intelligent person, what should he do? Abhajet. Abhajet should worship fully him. Worship him. We forgot him, right? We turned away from him, and because of that, we have this fear. Therefore, who is intelligent, who wants to get rid of the fear, should do what? Worship him, right? And how should he worship? Bhaktya, with devotion. And what's the quality of devotion? Ekaya bhakta, unalloyed devotion. Isham Guru Deva Atma. Right? So this was very nice. How should we do it? Yes, unalloyed devotional service under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom we should accept as one's worshipable deity and very life and soul. So we should accept a bona fide guru as our life and soul, and under the directions of the bona fide guru, we should actually engage in unalloyed devotional service to that Supreme Lord, and that is the way we can actually overcome fear. So the fear cause is because we have turned away from Krishna, and hence what we should do is explained in this verse. Okay, so very nice verse. You can memorize this. Bhayam dvitiya abhineshvas shata syad ishad apetasya viparyo smriti. So Prabhupada quotes this verse in the purport. Everyone following with me?
Is everybody is breaking, Prosy? Because for me, your voice is a lot breaking.
Anyone has this problem?
No, I don't have that problem.
Okay,
No, Mataji, we are good.
maybe.
Mataji, if you have any other
I
sessions
have
open,
2-3
maybe.
times.
Yeah, if you have other sessions to open, then probably closing that might help.
Okay, okay. Prabhu, I'll just leave and join again, okay?
Okay. So Prabhupada makes a point in the purport. When one is fully convinced that he is not this body, there is no question of that. right? And how will that conviction come? Okay, this is a question. Maybe you can unmute and say. See, when we are convinced we are not this body, there is no fear of that. How will that conviction come? Think about it. How will we get convinced? Like, how many times we have heard we are not this body? Prabhupada almost in every class, he'll at least make the point that, oh, we are not this body. Maybe thousands of times we have heard we are not this body. But how will that conviction come? We hear we are not this body, but still we act as if we are this body.
Only when we remember Krishna, we feel convinced. Once we forget it, that's it. We lost it.
Okay. Okay. How will
Through
that?
realizations.
Yes, Manan Prabhu.
Through realizations.
Through realization. Okay. That's a okay. So yes, theoretically we know we are in this body, but we need to realize that knowledge. How will realization come now? Okay, so we'll get convinced when we get the realization. How will realization come now?
Sadhana.
When we surrender,
Okay. So Prabhupada says that conviction comes by engaging in spiritual activities of devotional service. So when we actually do the seva, like I have said this formula many times. Everyone should remember this. Gyan, this knowledge, plus seva is equal to Vigyan, realized knowledge. And Vidura has made this point just in third canto, earlier we read. So when we are getting this knowledge and at the same time we engage in devotional service, seva, then the same knowledge that we are getting will get converted to realization. We will be convinced that we are not this body. Okay. Everyone remembers this equation?
Yeah.
Right? So knowledge plus seva is equal to realized knowledge. That will lead to conviction. Okay, so proper conviction comes by engaging spiritual activity of devotional service. Okay. So this whole point of the shloka is that time is an aspect of the Lord Himself. Right? So Prabhupada said, accept the time factor as the Supreme Personality of God is standing before us. Accept time factor as supreme, because directly the Lord Himself is directly the energy of the Lord. Okay? Prabhupada says time speaks to, the Lord speaks to every living entity. Does the Lord speak to every jiva? Yes, as time. As time, the Lord is speaking to everyone. Every conditioned soul. He may be an atheist, but still the Lord is speaking to him through time, saying that realize whatever you're earning is going to go away. Hence, find the solution to find something beyond all this. The Lord is speaking to everyone through time. Okay, 17.
प्रकृतिर्गुणसाम्यस्य निर्विशेषस्य मानवी चेष्टा यतः स भगवान् काल इत्युपलक्षितः.
My dear mother, O daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, the time factor, as I've explained, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom the creation begins as a result of the agitation of the neutral, unmanifested nature.
Right? So guna samyasya nirvishesya. So when the modes are not active, it is called pradhan. And when there will the agitation of the modes happen? Because of the influence of time. And this time factor is designated as the Supreme Personality. So Bhagwan Kalaha iti upalakshita. Bhagwan Kalaha. This time factor is designated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does the Bhagavad Gita shloka where Krishna says, I am time? Kalosmi. Kalosmi. I am time. I am that time. Right? Kal, I am. Right? So similarly here, I am Bhagwan Kala iti upalakshita. The time factor is designated as Supreme Personality of God. So Prabhupada makes a point how the unmanifested material nature, the pradhan, is agitated by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that leads to prakriti, right? Manifestation of prakriti. Material nature cannot produce any variety of manifestation without coming in contact with this glance. So it is the glance of the Lord. So can prakriti act on its own? Right? We often say, oh, such a beautiful sunrise, right? People go to the beach and say, oh, just we want to see the sunrise, we want to see the sunset. Oh, nature is so beautiful. But can nature act on its own? No. So hence Prabhupada goes, Maya Dhakshena Prakriti. So the Prakriti is only when Maya Dhakshena, when the Adhyaksha, when the glance of Maya, Krishna is saying, my glance is actually, I glance upon Prakriti, then everything happens. Without Lord's glance, Prakriti cannot do everything what we are seeing. So Prabhupada gives two examples. One is, and we may not have this experience, but it's actually given in different places in the Shastra, that a nipples of a goat, though it looks like, oh, these nipples are like breast nipples and they'll give milk, they are not breast nipples. So material nature appears to act as and react on its own, but no. It is only when it is agitated by the glance of the Lord with the time factor. Other example Prabhupada gives, the woman cannot produce children unless contact with the man. Right? Unless the woman is impregnated, there is no question of woman giving birth to a child. Right? So similarly, unless the Prakriti is impregnated with the Lord, there is no question of Prakriti acting on its own. 18.
अन्तः पुरुषरूपेण कालरूपेण यो बहिः समन्वितेश सत्त्वानां भगवान् आत्ममायया.
By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the supersoul and without as time. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
So antaha is within. So within, what is the form? Purusha Rupena. He is in the form of Paramatma. Right? And Bahihi, without, he exists as what? A Kala Rupena. So within, he's within everything, within every atom as Paramatma. And without, he exists as the time factor. Saman Veti, he exists. Bhagwan Atmamaya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his potencies. So, Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his potencies, exists in this material nature, within everything as Atma, and without everything, without everything as the time factor. And then Satwanam Samatveti. And in this way, he is the controller of all living entities and the time. So when we say the Lord is a supreme controller, right? Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So he is the ultimate cause of everything. He is the supreme controller, right? When we say he is a supreme controller, how is the Lord controlling? That is what this verse is saying. Right? Externally as time, internally as Paramatma. Anta Bahi. Okay. So Prabhupada in his purport, he talks of Paramatma. Right? What is a verse in Bhagavad Gita that gives a good explanation of Paramatma?
Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto.
Okay, that's good. So in that, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridhi, I'm in the heart of every living entity. There's another verse where particularly Krishna gives the qualities of Paramatma. 7 qualities of Paramatma. 13th chapter. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Here.
So there's someone also Bhakta Bhakta, right, bro?
So see this verse. Yes, thank you, Mati. So you see this verse, 13th chapter, 21, right? 21, I think. So Upadrashta Anumantacha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapi Ukto Dehesmin Purusha Paraha. 7 aspects of the Paramatma. So first and second is what? Upadrishta and Anumanta. That means what? Upadrishta means he is the witness or the overseer, and Anumanta means he is the permitter. Right? So when the jiva comes in this world to enjoy the material nature, he cannot do anything on his own. The Paramatma who is seated next to the jiva, he sees, oh, the jiva has so and so desire. Then he says, okay, let the three modes of material nature act upon the jiva in such a way that he can actually try to fulfill his desire. So that aspect where the Paramatma is witnessing the desire of the jiva, and then he's permitting, he's saying, okay, that's what you want. The modes act upon him so that he can do that. That is Upadrishta Anumanta, 1 and 2. Third one, he is the Bharta. Bharta, he's the master. He's different from Atma. Is Paramatma Atma? No, no. He's the supreme Atma. He's unlike us. So he's the master. We are the servant. Bhokta, actually, he is the enjoyer. Right? Bharta, Bhokta, he is the enjoyer. Maheshwara, he is the supreme Lord. This is actually the Lord himself. Paramatma is an expansion of the Lord. It is the Lord himself. Uh, okay, so Maheshwara. And then Paramatmeti Chapyukto, this is called Paramatma. Dehes means Purushaha Parma. And he is within everyone's body as Purushaha and Paraha. Purusha means the Supreme Lord. The Purusha here again enjoyer. And then Paraha means he is transcendent. Right? So these are the seven aspects of Paramatma. So Prabhupada explains this in the purport. And he says just Atma and Paramatma, they are just like two birds sitting on a tree. One bird is doing what? He's enjoying the fruits. Sometimes the fruit is sweet. And he says, oh, so good. Sometimes the fruit is raw. There's no juice. And he says, oh no, so bad. And what is the other bird sitting on the tree doing? He's just witnessing. Saying, okay, that's what you want? Okay, try it out. It's not ripe yet. You want to try it out? Okay, try it out. It's going to hurt. You want to try it out? Okay, try it out. And when this bird turns to the other bird and says, oh, I am tired of trying all these fruits. Please take me under your shelter. Then immediately Paramatma says, okay, I'll connect you, extend it to a guru, and then he will show you the way how you can get out of all these attachments. Right? So this is Paramatma. Okay. So again,
Prabhuji, can you please repeat what you said about the Lord controlling by being the super soul and also being the time? Can you just repeat that statement?
so Lord is controlling all the living entities and all the material elements. How is the Lord controlling? Like how we say, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. Right? So that means everything the Lord is actually has a hand. Now, how is that happening? Because in every atom, within every atom, the Lord is present as Paramatma. Paramatma. So Lord is there within every atom as Paramatma. And then by the influence of time in this material world, things are moving. If there was no time, then if time is fixed, then nothing would move. But because of the influence of time, things are moving. And because Paramatma is all pervasive, he is making things move. How? Based on the desires of us Jiva. Based on our desires to enjoy material nature, Paramatma is making things happen in that way. So that way the Paramatma and the time aspect are both the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they are controlling all living entities and all the material elements. Is that okay? Mataji?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, next sloka, 19. Okay, so up to 18 is about time, right? So 25th element is what? Time. Everyone okay about time? Can everyone, devotees just unmute and say what were the characteristics of time we just read? Quickly.
Everything will manifest in time.
In time, okay? And then all the manifestation is happening because of time, and because of time, the unmanifested pradhan will become prakriti. Okay? What else?
It also causes the fear of death.
Yeah. It is because of the time factor that we actually experience the fear of death. And who is time?
Krishna himself.
Time. So time is directly the aspect of the Lord, and because of this time factor, and plus there was one more thing where bhayam dvitiya abhinisha. We absorbed in something other than Krishna, immediately the time factor acts upon us and we experience fear. Okay. What else about time? Anything else?
Prakriti cannot happen without the glance of the Lord, which is the time factor.
Yes, very nice. Thank you. Okay, so now time 25th we have described. Now let's go to the next aspect. So text 19.
दैवाक्षुभितधर्मिण्यां स्वस्यां यो न परः पुमान् आदत्तवीर्यं सा सूत महत्तत्त्वं हिरण्मयम्.
Hare Krishna. After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with his internal potency, material nature delivers the sum total of cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the distinctions of conditioned souls.
Destinations of the
Yes.
destination. So basically here, Daivat Shobitaha. So, okay, we talked of the glance of the Lord, we talked of time. How is the Prakriti, like when does the Pradhan get agitated? We said the glance. But what happens when the glance is there? Daivita Shobita. The Paraha Puman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of the destination of the conditioned soul, he adata, he impregnates Viryam. Viryam means the semen or the seed, right? He impregnates the semen. Sa yono, yoni means what? The womb. Yoni means womb, right? So he impregnates the yoni of Prakriti and impregnated with virya is the semen, right? And then when agitated by the destiny of the conditioned souls, Asut Mahatattva, he delivers the sum total of cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya, or the great brilliance. So what does this verse say? Okay, so we have Pradhan, okay, and the Pradhan as such, because it is the modes are there, all the elements are there, but they are manifested. It is when the living entity, when the Lord, Paraha, Puman, he actually impregnates the Pradhan with the glance. So the glance is there, and through the glance, the impregnation happens. And then when it is impregnate, when the Prakriti is impregnated, then because of the agitation by the destiny of the conditioned soul, then the Pradhan manifests into Mahatattva and all the elements. So basically, what is happening, just like how I gave the example, like a man is impregnating a woman, right? So the semen is given to the woman, and then what happens? As soon as the semen is given to a woman, then immediately, because the child wants to take birth, right? So because of comparing to our point, because of the destiny of conditioned souls, right? Then immediately what happens? Then the mother provides all the ingredients so that the body of the living entity is formed. Isn't it? Right? That's how the child is, grows in the womb. The ingredients are given, the hand, leg, eyes, all to the child in the womb is given. So similarly here, exactly similarly, Prakriti, she is getting the seed from the Lord, and then when she is agitated by the destiny or karma of the living entity, then all the ingredients. She has to give bodies to all the living entities. And she provides the ingredients for hand, leg, eyes of Jiva. If the destiny of Jiva is to become a dog, then she'll give those ingredients. If the destiny of Jiva is to become an elephant, she'll give those ingredients. Destiny of a Jiva is to become a human being, she'll give those ingredients. Right? Just like the birth of a child. Okay? Everyone with me? Confused? Clear, right? It's through the glance, the semen is given. And then when the semen is given, because of the karma, right, of the living entity, then all the ingredients. And then, so hence this way, Asuta Mahatattva. Then she delivers what? The sum total of cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. So who is impregnated? The Pradhan. Right? The Pradhan is impregnated, and the Pradhan gives birth to who?
Mahatattva.
Okay. So here it is saying Mahatat Asuda delivers sum total of cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiran Maya. The sum total of all that, okay, is called Hiran Maya. So one way Mahatattva.
So, Prabhu, all these things are happening at the time of the universe creation. Is that right?
Yes.
So, but we are also talking about karma here, right?
Yes.
So
So
the
this is
karma,
previous time.
previous life, right? So, but the universe, the soul is still there. When the body dies, it's still there in the universe, within the universe. And then it is born again at some point. And the universe is not destroyed at that point, right? So so that is a different
Okay,
concept.
let me explain, Prabhu. So one is at the time when Brahma's day comes to an end, right? So when Brahma is time for Brahma to take his night tea and go to sleep, right? When he goes to sleep, then what happens to all the living entities? Because Brahma is going to sleep. Then all the living entities, they enter into so there is Garbhodaksha Vishnu, right? From whose navel is the lotus and Brahma is seated on top, right? So
Yes.
then all the living entities on the stem of the lotus, where all the planets are, they all go into the womb of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, from where the lotus is coming. They stay there until next day of Brahma. And then next day of Brahma, then again Brahma has to recreate, right? Brahma wakes up in the morning, he forgets, oh, who I am. I slept so deeply that I forgot who I am, what I have to do. So again he says, okay, let me meditate. And then he recreates. And then again the living entities from this womb of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, they come. And based on their previous day, what they did, karma, they will get one of these positions, one of these planets, and one of the form or species in these planets. That is one. Right? Now, the second aspect is when Brahma's 100 years are over. When Brahma has to die after his 100 years, then what happens? Then the whole universe is actually. So now we are talking every day is within one bubble. Now, at the night, when Brahma has to die 100 years, then the whole universe gets annihilated. All the elements, they go back. So what we are reading now is all the elements being formed. But at the end of Brahma life, all the ingredients, they merge back. So now it is like from Pradhan, they are manifesting into 24 elements. All those merge back and become Pradhan. Right? And that enters into the body of Karanodakshai Vishnu.
Okay.
Higher, right? So the living entities also enter into Karanodakshai Vishnu. And then when another universe comes, or Karanodakshai Vishnu breathes out a universe, a bubble, and that's what we are reading now.
Right.
The Jivas went in, but they had some desire. That's why they went back. Otherwise, they had gone back to Godhead. So they went back into Karanodakshai because of those desires. So now we are reading what happens then. So the glance of Mahavishnu, right, is carrying those jivas back into Prakriti.
So those are the two, and I was more referring to one more point. Thanks for clarifying those two. But the third point is when the soul itself dies, right? So within the universe,
soul never dies.
No, I mean the soul's body dies, right? And then it comes back up again within the same universe at that point. So again, the karma is playing a role at that point based on the karma.
Certainly, yeah. What body you are going to get in the next life depends on the karma this time, yes.
Right.
But this transition is, it is just like a subtle body already has all those impressions. It's much simpler than the other two which I mentioned.
Right.
Because here, the mind, intelligence, they store all the impressions. And based on that, is okay. You leave the physical body, the gross body you're leaving, and the subtle body is carrying the soul and saying, okay, that is your desire, that is your destiny, another.
Right. So it's the same karma in both the instances, right? Whether it is coming from
yeah. I mean, that karma, that agitation is the same. It's only like what kind of annihilation is happening.
Right.
Either just say annihilation of the body, it's the same karma. It's the same desire of the living entity to enjoy. Either it is just a change or destruction of this body, or destruction of like nighttime of Brahma, or destruction at the end of Brahma's life. But the desires of the living entities are with the living entities.
Right, right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu,
Okay.
I have a quick question as well.
Yes.
You spoke about how the woman gets impregnated, and then it is the body is the soul has not yet entered the womb, right? But the body is being formed.
No,
So at
soul.
what point soul has already entered?
So through the semen is the soul is actually entering.
So when they say, so I don't know, but when does that body, the soul, start becoming
See, the point.
contaminated? Or is it already contaminated because of
See, the soul itself,
prior
the soul itself is pure, right?
right,
So,
that
yeah.
consciousness?
So when the man is impregnating the woman, the soul is actually impregnated into the womb of the woman. And at that time, the subtle body is actually already there. Because what the ingredients the mother is giving is the ingredients of the gross body. So the subtle body with the impressions of mind, intelligence, false ego is already there with that jiva. And that's why the jiva is here, not in the spiritual world.
So would we say that the father is then the actual giver of all the characteristics, not the physical characteristics, but so physical characteristics are more the mother, but then the
The
soul.
father is an agent of carrying the soul with the subtle body into the womb of the woman. Right?
So it is the mentality of the father that is going to create the I mean the mental characteristics of the child would like, because we always say the other way around, right? After the body or after the child is there.
Right. So actually, I mean, it is actually both father and mother's influence is certainly there on the child. But what we are talking about the subtle body is the impressions from the previous lifetime, the desires of the living entity, which is more subtle than the characteristics that we physically see of a person. Right? Sometimes they say the son goes after the mother, the daughter goes after the father. Right? Takes the characteristics. They say it this way. So, how does that happen? So, what impressions are carried is something which is more deep. It is like the desire of the living entity to enjoy in a particular way, which is exhibited through the character of whichever parent he is getting. Now, whose influence is stronger is actually determined at the time of union. So that's also a whole science. There's a whole book written on that. Whose influence? So it is basically at the time of union, whose influence that determines the. And that's a whole science to that.
Yes, it is a deeper topic, I think, but just to get
but the
some
main
idea.
point is the impressions, which are the desire, which are more deeper, that is there from the previous life. Right?
So
how it's exhibited that character, it could be either father, mother, and based on how they are uniting and etc. So this whole process, like who selects? Imagine that whole science there. That someone is doing the selection, a jiva has so and so karma, and then someone has to say, okay, he has so and so karma, so and so desire, which family he should take birth. It is not automatic.
And what species should he take birth in?
Yeah, how many species you should take birth, right? And imagine who's doing that maths there. How many choices does he have?
Right.
Unlimited choices. But the system is like, that's why Krishna has created the system so perfectly that based on the karma, like, okay, for you, you have some animal desires, but based on your karma, you did this in so and so life. So you're destined to get a human body, but because you have the animal tendency, okay, maybe this family in so and so part of the world is actually uniting, and no, maybe you should go there. I mean, it is like, how do we understand that, right? So all the laws of how everything is working is so much beyond us. And then we think that, oh, we can figure it out. We are greater. Why do we need God? We know we are smarter. Science and technology. We have AI. AI can do everything. That is nothing compared to the science, what we are seeing already that is in play, right? So, I know it's a nice point to think about. Okay, so Prabhupada in the purport talks about this. After impregnation, material nature delivers different kinds of living entities from Brahma all the way to insignificant ant, right? Whatever that Prakriti is giving the ingredients. So either a body of a dog, cat, horse, elephant, all those different cockroach, etc., etc. Right? Next verse. Let's go to 20.
Prabhu,
Yeah.
so in the translation, sorry, in the word-to-word Prabhu, in the womb, Prabhupada wrote material nature, and then again, she manifest material nature. So I'm trying to understand, as you said, that Pradhan gets pregnated, but
Yes.
Pradhan, I think Pradhan is the womb. I mean, I'm trying to understand this, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So
That
Pradhan is like the womb receiving the seed. Yes. Medium.
right. So then that womb is within material nature. Say like how a woman already carries the womb, right? Always, or
So,
it is being given.
so the womb itself is actually Pradhan. I mean, there is no like here now we are differentiating between the womb and the mother. I mean, here in this Pradhan aspect, there is no difference between the womb and the like. There's no person there separate from the womb. Pradhan
But
itself.
Prabhuji, material Prakriti is I mean, as she is mentioned, like Lord's one of the wives, I mean, Maya Devi.
Yeah.
Okay, she already carries Pradhan in herself, and the Lord glances, or is it like the Lord also provides the womb to her? Because if she is an energy of the Lord, she is spiritual, or quote unquote material energy, but she's spiritual. How can she carry elements? I mean, what I understand, Prabhu, is that the pradhan is also the womb is also given to material energy.
Okay.
This along with
actually,
Maya Devi, because she's Krishna's wife. What do you say?
At this point, actually comes in one of the purports. Let me see. One of the purpose Prabhupada talks about it. I'm seeing whether it was next one.
That's what I'm saying, Prabhuji. I have probably read it, so that's why I'm trying to understand that Maya Devi and Pradhan are two separate entities.
Okay, so see, this is the way we understand it. So we made the point that Pradhan is also called what? Brahman with gunas, right? Saguna Brahman, right? So that means what? So at one level, this Pradhan is actually like how can the jivas who are spiritual be impregnated into something which is not spiritual?
Correct.
Right? So, but this Pradhan is kind of a reflection of the original Brahman, right? So what happens? So we'll go back. Karanaksha Vishnu is breathing. So from the breathing, all these bubbles are coming. And these bubbles, each one of these bubbles come out. Now, the bubbles as such has everything. All the ingredients are there. But it is actually unmanifested. So that is the Pradhan state, right? And then when the Lord glances, then Rama Devi is carrying the glance. And then as soon as she has to interact with Prakriti, that glance becomes Prakriti,
Shambhu and
Durga Devi, right? Durga Devi. And then because the glance, like the glance itself, because Ramadevi is carrying, and when she is giving it to Prakriti, to Durga Devi, then the glance becomes Shambhu, because Shambhu interacts directly with Durga, right? So now the impregnation is actually happening into the pradhan, the reflection, right? And at that state, when that the glance is carried by Ramadevi, and then Durga and Shiva come into play, right? So uh, that's when the material aspect of the contamination actually happens, right? Otherwise, it is all spiritual, because the Lord will not glance. The jiva, when he's carrying all the jivas, they are actually spiritual by nature. Oh, exactly in this purport. Sorry, it's right there. In 19, in the purport, Prabhupada makes the point. Jivas belong to the spiritual world. Let me find that sentence.
I read the purport.
Yeah, so in the purport, Prabhupada says, right, Jiva. Oh, yeah. So this means that the living entities are spiritual by nature. The Supreme Lord does not put his semen into that which is not spiritual. Right. So, but is stated here that the Supreme Person puts his semen into material nature. This means that the living entities are spiritual nature. After impregnation, the material nature delivers all kinds of living, beginning from Brahma all the way to the lowest ant. Right? So, material nature is mother, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a seed giving father. Right? So, then Prabhupada explains, generally explains father and mother how they. So here Prabhupada says, this potency of the Supreme Lord is spiritual, and the living entities, although they are called marginal potency, they are also spiritual. Though we are tatastha, we are actually what? Material or spiritual? We are marginal, but we are spiritual, because we belong to the
Spiritual.
yeah, we are spiritual. If the living entities were not spiritual, this description of impregnation by the Supreme Lord would not be applicable, because how would the Lord actually impregnate something which is not spiritual? Hence, the jiva is actually spiritual. So it is actually impregnated into the pradhan, which is Saguna Brahman, right? And then at a particular moment, when the agitation, when the jivas, because of his previous karma, the agitation begins, then that's when the material ingredients, all those things happen.
The problem is, bro, we're trying to understand this whole thing, like how impregnation really happens. But that's not how we can understand Krishna's pastimes.
I mean, when it goes into the subtle aspect, that's not the chance.
Yeah.
When you talk of subtle, the mind, intelligence, they're carrying all this other false ego. We have our experience is to understand things which are tangible. Pencil is tangible. How can we understand the mind? How can we understand the impressions the mind carries? How can we understand thoughts? I mean, there is research going on to understand these thoughts for I guess since the science has started, they're they want to understand, okay, how does a thought, is it a firing of an impulse? All those things, right? It is very subtle. We cannot understand all that. Okay. So,
Prabhuji, can I get a this is how, is this idea or is this picturization correct? Where we say that maybe, so this is how I'm looking at it. There's the soul, but then the soul gets covered by the 24 elements and the time in different concentrations. So each soul kind of gets covered with these elements. The 25 elements are the same, right? It is the exact same, but the concentration of
yeah.
each of those elements are different. And
Yes.
that covers the soul. And that is why, as a jiva, we have now the responsibility to kind of change that concentration, remove it, or do something. And is that picturization correct?
Yeah. So it is true that aspect of someone may have a body which is more fiery, someone is on sun planet, and certainly his body is more of the element of fire. Someone is in water, maybe more element of water, etc., etc. So that combination is different for different jivas, and hence our point is we want to first of all like give up our identity with these elements, and the whole purpose of Sankhya is to understand that this is not who we are. All these 24 elements is not who we are, right? We get attracted to another person, opposite sex, there's attraction, but it is just elements, different combination of elements. A real attraction is actually to Krishna, and that's the whole purpose of Sankhya. Like last time I made this point, if you make a nice cake, it is delicious. It's like, oh, so good. But if I just give you the ingredients, what is the attraction,
It's not. Yeah.
right? You'll just say, okay, here, some flour, eat flour. Like, come on, you can't eat flour, right? So that process. So yes, so Sankhya is actually bringing us back to the ingredients to say, like, oh, all this is actually not not what we are attracted to. This is only out of a false identification we feel this attraction, but our real attraction is Krishna.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, let's continue.
Prabhuji, can you repeat this? Ramadevi carries the glance, that is the agitation, and that is transferred to
Agitation is not there, right? Agitation later.
the glance itself is agitation, right?
No. So what did the verse say? The glance is there, and what is the glance carrying? Jivas. Jiva is impregnated into who? Oh. I mean, that was the other way of explaining, but according to this section, jivas are impregnated into who? Who is the womb?
Material nature.
Material mother.
Pradhan. Say Pradhan, right? We want to say more specific, Pradhan, right? Now, when the Pradhan is impregnated with the living entity, then because what is the agitation? Agitation is because of the karma of these jivas. Then there is agitation. Agitation means, like, let's say Pradhan has everything together, right? All the ingredients, 24 elements are together, right? It's unmanifested. But as soon as the jivas are pregnated, it's coming into the Pradhan, right? Now, because the jivas have those desires to enjoy, that's when it gets agitated. And then Pradhan, the modes become active, and then it gives birth to Mahatattva. So agitation is because in the Pradhan, because of the karma of the living entity.
Repeat, there are a lot of souls, right? So agitation happens to all of the souls.
No, agitation is to who? Not of the souls. Agitation is Pradhan. The Pradhan is agitated to give birth to Mahatattva. Like the mother gets the seed, right? The spirit soul enters into the womb. Now, because the spirit soul has a desire to get a body, that's the system, then the mother's womb will start making arrangements to give different ingredients of blood, all the cells, everything, so that the body is formed, right? So agitation is inside the womb of the mother, right? So that the body is formed.
We are imagining that glance is like one soul, but we have to imagine like whole.
It's unlimited souls. So many
Unlimited
souls.
souls.
That's why Bhagavad Gita uses the word sarvagataha. That's everywhere. The souls are everywhere. It's like you can even count. How many souls are there in your room where you're sitting?
Oh, so many.
How many souls are there within our body? Actually, I was in a university program,
Bugs.
and then we were explaining this concept of how we are spiritual. And one student came after class and said, "So, how many souls are there in my body?" I said, that's a good question. So we ourselves, yes, we are spiritual, but there are other living entities who live within us, like worms and all those things, and they are all souls. So we don't know how our body is like a house of so many souls, but the soul of who we are, that is one soul which sits in the heart. Right? There are other living entities, but there's only one soul which sits in the heart. That's who we are. But there are other limits. So, yeah, so many anywhere. Okay, 20. Let's go.
विश्वमात्मा गतं व्यञ्जन् कूटस्थो जगदङ्कुरः स्वतेजसा पिबत् तीव्रम् आत्मप्रस्वापनं तमः.
Hare Krishna. Thus, after manifesting variegatedness, the effulgent Mahat Tattva, which contains all the universes within itself, which is the root of all cosmic manifestations, and which is not destroyed at the time of annihilation, swallows the darkness that covered the effulgence at the time of dissolution.
Okay. So what is this word saying? Vishwam Atmagatam. So contain, so all the universes, which contains all universes within itself. Jagat Ankura, which is a root of all cosmic manifestation. Kutta Staha, fixed, unchangeable, not destroyed at the time of annihilation. Swa Tejasa. The main point is Swa Tejasa. So previous verse, what did we read? Who is born? Mahatattva. And because this Mahatattva, right, Mahatattva is actually going to produce all the living entities, like all the ingredients for different living entities, Swa Tejasa. So up to this point, the universe is dark, right? It is dark. But at this moment, Swa Tejasa, the Mahatattva becomes illuminated. So, and imagine like a bubble, it's full dark. But at a particular time, it's like, okay, now we're agitated. Now the bodies have to come. Now there's light. Right? Someone turns on the light. Okay, now the living entity has to function. Let's turn on the light. So that Swa Tejasa is by its own effulgence, which actually apiva tivram, the dense darkness is actually swallowed. Right? So, and then it says Atma Praswapanam. So the darkness which was covering this whole thing at the time of the previous dissolution, that darkness is taken away by the effulgence of Mahatattva. Okay.
Is this what they call the Big Bang then? It's almost like that, right? It's like as if there's like a big whoosh and the old darkness gets swallowed and it's all light.
Actually, our philosophy is big breath.
Big breath. Okay.
Big breath.
But it like the visualization is that similar to
I mean,
like would they have got like would the current
see,
scientists have got
we
the idea from here?
we cannot explain the creation without accepting God. And the Big Bang is trying to explain the whole thing without the aspect of God. And it's not possible. You just say like, okay, there was nothing, and nothing became something at a particular moment. I mean, it does not make like if you think logically, it's only yes, okay, there was some energy, but the Lord glanced upon it. Then it took place. So that moment, which we say maybe Big Bang, is basically when the glance is connected to the pradhan, right? So maybe
So
that.
probably the new scientists would have got the idea from here, but they left out God. I mean, that's how I'm
They left out
visualizing
the
the whole
most
thing.
important aspect they left.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
To explain creation without the creator, right? And that's why Prabhupada was so heavy on the scientists. So you're talking of creation and you're not giving acknowledgement or to the creator. Like, what is that? What is that? Okay. Let's see. So Prabhupada makes a point in purport. Thus, when Mahat Tattva is created, the manifested material ego and swallowed up the darkness, right? So the main point was dark before, and now the effulgence is manifested to exhibit different varieties, variegatedness of the material world. And Prabhupada compares it. Like person night, he's inactive, he's covered in darkness, but he awakens, and because he wants to do activity, he'll turn on the light. Right? So similar Mahatattva one way, turn on the light, so all the variegatedness are manifested. 21.
Yattat sattvagunam swacham.
Prabhu, Prabhuji, Pradhan is also Krishna's Haribo?
Yeah, go ahead. Pradhan is also.
Pradhan is also Krishna's creation. So do we say that Pradhan is dark matter? I mean, it doesn't have effulgence because I know Pradhan does not have jivas, which are the self-effulgent characteristics, consciousness.
So reflection, right? So Brahman,
Yeah.
reflected Brahman with the gunas. So yeah, I mean, at this point, how it is explained, it seems like only when the Mahatattva is actually the birth of Mahatattva is there, then the effulgence is there.
Effulgence.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you know how we say sometimes, like we say, okay, 3/4 of the creation is spiritual world, and then 1/4 is this material world. And it is basically one dark cloud that is covering this material, this 1/4 creation. Because otherwise, everywhere is the effulgence of the Lord. But at some point, this transition is done. So the dark cloud, one way you can say, is Pradhan. So when it is Saguna, when it's Nirguna, that's on the light side. When it is Saguna, it is on the dark side, like a cloud. 21.
Yattat sattvagunam swacham shantam bhagavatah padam yadahurvasudevakyam chittam tanmahadatmakam.
The mode of goodness, which is the clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudeva or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahatattva. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I just want to, let me just explain this and just share my screen a little bit. Okay, and it's my notes, but I hope you can read. So basically, I want to share to make the point, how is the Mahatattva present in each one of us? How is the Mahatattva present in each one of us? It is through consciousness, in the form of consciousness, which is initially pure, Swachan. It is devoid of passion, Santam, right? So there's no passion, it is only pure goodness. The Chitta is pure goodness. And then at this point, so we'll read further when the consciousness becomes polluted. But at this point, it is described that the Mahat Tattva is present within each one of us as the Sattva Gunam, right? Which is clear and which is Santam. Right? And then here further it is actually explained. This is actually the pure consciousness is actually explained as Vasudeva Sattva. Right? It's called Vasudeva. Vasudeva Akhyam. Right? Vasudeva Akhyam. And Chitta Mahat Atmakam. The consciousness becomes manifest in Mahat Tattva. Okay. So let's see what is proper translation. The mode of goodness, which is clear, sober status of understanding, which is generally called Vasudev or consciousness, becomes manifest in Mahat Tattva. So in Mahat Tattva, the consciousness. So if you say, okay, Pradhan, then it got impregnated, it gave birth to the Mahat Tattva. Now in the Mahat Tattva, right? In the Mahat Tattva, what enters first is the consciousness. That consciousness which is actually present in the individual body is actually entering into the Mahatattva. So that consciousness which first enters is actually pure, Swachan. So what was devoid of passion? Santam. And then this is the place for worshipping the Lord. It's called Vasudeva. So the point here, Chitta. So all these, so we are reading about the four, the subtle elements. What is it? Mind, intelligence, false ego, and the consciousness. Right? So when the consciousness is pure, that aspect. So hence it said, Chitta, you should worship Vasudev for purifying the consciousness. Right? The presiding deity of Chitta is Vishnu. Ahankar, false ego, you should worship Sankarshan, right? So worship Sankarshan to purify the false ego, and the presiding deity is Rudra. Intelligence, you want to purify it, you worship Pradyumna, the presiding deity being Brahma. And mind, you want to purify, you worship Aniruddha, presiding deity is Chandra. Right? So basically, the aspect is that these four subtle elements have an aspect of Vishnu whom we worship to purify these elements. Right? And that is different from the presiding deities of these elements. Okay.
Prabhuji, who's the presiding deity of intelligence?
Brahma,
So then mind?
Chandra,
Chandra.
moon. So like if you do like if someone is into astrology, they'll say, "Oh, Prabhu, your mind is it becomes very agitated. You have a strong influence of the moon."
Prabhuji, the Shubhodhini is saying that the presiding deity of mind is Anirudh.
No, not precisely. See, there are two aspects here. You saw my notes. So for mind, you want to purify the mind, then you worship who? Aniruddha. Presiding deity is mind. Okay. So Prabhupada explains that in this purport, he says, the Lord expands as the four aspects of Sankarshan, of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So if you see in the original expansions of Krishna, you have Krishna, then Balaram. From Balaram, you have the first Chaturvya, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. Then Narayan, and from that Adi Sankarshan, second Chaturvya. So here is made the point: the Lord is expanding as these four expansions of Godhead occur, and the aspect which is seated within as super soul expands first as Vasudev. The Vasudev stage is free from infringement of material desires, and it is at this stage one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so if one want to be situated in clear consciousness of Krishna consciousness, one should worship Vasudev. Okay. Now, this aspect Prabhupada mentions in the purport, which is like kind of a little bit. Okay. When Krishna or Vishnu is alone without the accompaniment of his internal energy, he is Vasudev. When he is accompanied by his internal potency, he is called Dwarkadhish. I don't know like that aspect of like why, but this is all actually different forms of Vishnu. So basically, like we are focusing on the four: Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. That is the main four aspects. So Prabhupada is giving further information of how Vasudev is without the accompaniment of the internal energy. Okay, so if there's mental disturbances, one should worship Aniruddha. You want to have intelligence fixed, worship Pradyumna, and so on. So we have all. So false ego, you want to get purified, worship Sankarshan. So, okay.
Would you say then, Prabhuji, then if you just worship Vishnu, which is for purification of the chitta, all others will be taken care of?
Vasudeva aspect, right?
Oh, the Vasudevan.
Yeah. I mean, the point is actually given that these four aspects of Vishnu are manifested, so that actually, like, why are different forms of Vishnu there, right? So when we actually even put tilak, we meditate, Om Keshavaya Namah, Om Narayana Namah, Om Madhavaya Namah, Om Govindaya Namah. Each aspect of the body, we are meditating on one of these forms of Vishnu. So particularly hence for these four, there are four aspects of Vishnu that is said. Okay, you want to have your mind fixed, worship Aniruddha. You want to have your mind free from disturbance, worship Aniruddha. If you want to have your intelligence fixed, worship Pradyumna. So different aspects of Vishnu. So one way, that's why like different aspects are mentioned. Because yes, we want to finally purify our consciousness, but where is that contamination stored? In the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So we want to worship the personalities for each one of these so that all the lust in all these are actually purified. Okay.
Thank you.
Prabhu, or we can just worship Krishna, who can fix everything, right?
So, yeah. So in bhakti, our focus is Krishna. Now, what are we studying? Sankhya. So in Sankhya, when we analyze all these and we come and say, oh, actually my mind is contaminated. My intelligence is not weak. Oh, mind contaminated, let me worship this aspect of Vishnu. Because in Sankhya, when a person, a spiritualist is studying this, he does not have that conviction that Sarva Karana Karanam. Right? We are fortunate we directly came in contact with a pure devotee who has given us the ultimate. But through Sankhya, you will actually start worshipping these individual aspects to get purified. And then gradually, step by step, you'll come to the point of worshiping Krishna. Okay.
So I have a question before we go. So I can understand mind being contaminated, or at least I can vaguely understand what that contamination. But when we go to intelligence, Prabhu, can you example of intelligence getting contaminated? What is that, and how is that getting carried over from body to body?
Yeah. So intelligence getting contaminated here, intelligence is not fixed. Our point is like even when we are, when you want to like focus on something, we say, okay, I want to just focus on this. Immediately, what happened? We are distracted. So that
That the
means
mind is playing the role there, right, Prabhu?
mind is actually pulling us, but the intelligence is no longer fixed.
Okay.
Right? Fixed on one point. So that means, so if you go into, let's go to Bhagavad Gita. 3rd chapter, Krishna says what? He says, the reason we do things even though we don't want to do it is because Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava. Because we are all contaminated by this lust. And then further, Krishna says, where does lust reside? Where does it reside?
About the
Mind.
pure consciousness.
In mind.
No. He says mind, intelligence, and the senses. Lust resides in these places. And Prabhupada in the purport makes the point that if you want to conquer your enemy, first of all, you need to know where all the enemy is. So in the mind, in the intelligence, in the senses, this aspect of lust is actually. So that contamination is there. And one way it is, yes, the consciousness which is actually pervading the intelligence, mind, and the senses. That is contaminated. But because that is going through all these elements, each aspect is actually contaminated.
Right. So how does the intelligence play a role when going from one body to another?
How does the intelligence play a role? I mean, the point is like when we leave our body, at the time of death, it's basically neither the mind nor the intelligence is playing the role. It is Prakriti who is actually seeing what is the desires of the jiva and based on that giving it another body. And then when the jiva takes birth in a new body, then because of the desires which are there from previous life, then his intelligence will come and say, oh, you want to satisfy this desire? Okay, let's go here. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Yeah, correct. But the mind is having that information, right? So it is the desires of the soul is there in the mind.
The consciousness.
But mind is a storehouse of all the information.
All the thoughts.
Right?
All the thoughts.
So what is intelligence still? It's just
Okay. So let's come to your answer, Prabhu, because now we are going to read the characteristics of consciousness, characteristics of intelligence.
Okay. All right. Sure. Thank you, Prabhu.
How is everyone doing? Too much philosophy?
I'm trying to understand that these 4 aspects of, as you said, Sankarshan, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Niruddha. So they, how is it interesting that these 4, the last 4 subtle entities are accompanied by, I mean, they're representations of the Vishnu Tattvas, but not the other 21 elements, So they are all part of material nature, right? And these are Vishnu Tattvas. Interaction creates the living entities. Is it okay to think like that?
I mean, even the subtle is all material, right? I mean, 20 is gross material, 4 is subtle
But they
material.
are, the 4 are subtle material, but they're how controlled by these Vishnus, right?
Not controlled with these Vishnus, but the point is If you want to purify them, you worship so and so Vishnu. You want to purify your consciousness, worship Vasudeva. You want to purify your intelligence, you worship Pradyumna. You want to purify your mind, you worship Aniruddha.
Okay, so they don't really involve with these things, but
I mean,
rather
like, if the jiva just wants to enjoy this material world and live with the contaminated senses, then he will not worship any form of Vishnu. So then the presiding deity, what we mentioned as Brahma, Shiva, and the moon,
they come.
they will
Mm.
make things happen.
So this is like, how do we understand for like devotee aspect and material level? Like a devotee would go for the four Vishnus to fix these four things, and the people who are not in bhakti, they would take up to the astrological aspect, right? In a way.
Yeah. So, I mean, in astrology, if they say your mind is very disturbed, they'll say
Yes.
what? Worship the moon.
Moon, put on pearl.
Yeah. Right? So that's it.
Prabhu, are we going to read again I think, right? The Aniruddha, how he takes up to the mind. Is it? I think the explanation will come
Yeah,
ahead.
further, see, next section is basically consciousness we'll talk about, then intelligence, then mind. What are the characteristics, and so on.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe let's take a break and come back and continue. Okay.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, Mata.
So I don't understand in this part what was told. Vasudeva is Krishna alone, and without the accompaniment of internal energy, he's called Vasudeva, and with internal potency, he's called Dwarkadish. But Radharani is internal potency, right? So how do I understand this? Dwarkadish and Vasudeva. I'm mixed up with that.
At this point, is actually not so clear to me also. Like, see, Prabhupada said, in order to be situated in clear consciousness Krishna, one must worship Vasudeva. Vasudeva is Krishna alone.
Right.
When Krishna is without the accompaniment of his internal energy, he's Vasudeva. When he is accompanied, then he's called Dwarkadish.
Dwarkadish, that is confused.
Radharani is Haladini potency, right?
But she's internal potency, right?
That aspect of the internal potency, which is Haladini, is Shruti Radha.
Yeah.
But and I know why Prabhupada mentioned this aspect. It's not in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. More details about this are not being given.
Prabhu, I want to go the opposite way of understanding this, that Dwarkadish means he is never alone. He is always with Rukmini. And
Rukmini Devi is
Vasudeva,
expansion of Radharani. That's what you want to say?
I mean, of course, our thing will be Krishna and Radha, but I'm trying to go the downward to understand this, that Dwarkadish means he is always accompanied by internal potency, and Vasudev is how he is the controller deity, Mataji. Like that's what I'm trying to think, that how he is the control, because he's the controller, he's the Atma, as we said, he's the Lord of the Chitta. So combined consciousness is coming from Vasudev. Am I right, Prabhu? Right. I'm trying to go down to understand this statement, because if we come to the flow of Prabhupada, it is very confusing. So
Let me check, like maybe Jiva Goswami something on this, so I can check and let you know. Okay, so let's take
it's
a
a
break.
very unique statement.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. So, okay. Because Prabhupada, like also we see that how he takes commentaries from Sridhar Swami. especially on the first
Yeah.
canto, fifth chapter, you're listening Prabhupada's lectures. It's amazing, like especially in that section. I think initially when Prabhupada was giving Bhagavatam class, like up to fifth chapter, like when Prabhupada talks about this Narad Muni Vyasdev, you hear Prabhupada's classes. So the shloka is there, and then Prabhupada in between he'll start reading Sanskrit, and then he'll read a Sanskrit, and then he'll start explaining. Then he'll read Sanskrit. And it's like, what is Prabhupada reading from? And then you can see that he's reading from Sridhar Swami's commentary and giving an explanation to that. So that's how Prabhupada has given us his purpose, that we can understand that he's actually taking Sridhar Swami's commentary and then based on commentary, because you should hear those classes, like first canto, fifth chapter, Prabhupada's classes. And you'll see like Prabhupada in Sanskrit, he'll say like long, almost like for half a minute, he'll just say Sanskrit, and then he'll start explaining. And it's like, so it's all Sridhar Swami's commentary. So maybe Sridhar Swami makes something. And the thing is
Oh,
about Sridhar Swami's commentary is like, there is no English translation. So only devotees who know Sanskrit can actually understand and explain it. So, okay, let's take a break. Please come back and
but
then
I always think that Prabhupada mentions that this point is coming from Srila Swami, isn't it? That
What?
he does mention in purports that this according to
According
Srila Srila Swami,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Okay, please let's come back in 5 minutes. Let's take a break. Okay. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare everyone. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so should we continue? We are in text number 22.
122.
Let's see, would someone else like to do Sanskrit? Shreya Mataji, like to do Sanskrit?
Oh.
22.
Hare Krishna. Swachhatvam अविकारित्वं शान्तत्वम् इति चेतसः वृत्तिभिर्लक्षाणां प्रोक्तं यथापं प्रकृतिपरा
326:22. After the manifestation of the Mahatattva, these features appear simultaneously. As water in its natural state, before coming in contact with earth, is clear, sweet, and unruffled, so the characteristics, traits of pure consciousness are complete serenity, clarity, and freedom from distraction. Hare Krishna.
So now for each one of these subtle elements, consciousness, mind, intelligence, we are going to read what are the characteristics. And we already mentioned that all these four subtle elements can be distinguished only by understanding what is their function or character. We cannot as this, so that's the point. So here, if you see the Sanskrit, it says vritti bhi lakshanam proktam. These are the characteristics or the traits of chetaha, chitta. Chitta means consciousness. So what are the characteristics of consciousness? Now here it says swachhattam, clarity, avikaritvam, freedom from all distraction, santatvam, serenity. So these three are characteristics of consciousness. Clarity, freedom from all distraction, serenity. Yatha means example. As an example, the characteristics of natural state of water is clear, sweet, and unruffled. Right? So if you have natural water, clear, sweet, unruffled. Right? So similarly, this consciousness which is pure is clarity, freedom from distraction, and serenity. Okay. So just like water initially is pure, as soon as it comes in contact with earth, it becomes muddy. So, but originally it is pure, right? Yeah. So here Prabhupada makes the point that initially the consciousness is pure. The pure state of Krishna consciousness exists in the beginning, just after creation, and the consciousness is not polluted at this point. So that's the state before the pollution happens. That's what is actually mentioned. Okay, 23, 24.
Prabhuji, quick question. How is the consciousness related to the 24 elements? Is there any relationship as such?
So 24th, so if you see in the 24, in the four subtle elements, that is what mind, intelligence, false ego, and chitta. Now we are talking of the consciousness as chitta, right? But here, this verse is saying of the pure state of that consciousness. These are the characteristics. Now, when it comes in contact with material nature, then it will not have these characteristics. But in the pure state, this is. So the 24 elements, one of them is actually consciousness.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, okay.
Okay, 23, 24.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, is consciousness is different from soul?
Yeah, the symptom of the soul is consciousness, but because the soul itself is not polluted, consciousness is actually explained as one of the 24 elements because that will get contaminated. It is the consciousness that will get contaminated, right? So hence it is actually put, because otherwise the soul cannot be subjected. Soul is aloof from the material elements, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Soul is aloof from the material elements. So so there's one aspect of the soul which will interact with the material elements, and that is the consciousness. So hence consciousness is explained as one of the 24.
Thank
you. So 23, 24.
महत्तत्वात् विकुर्वाणात् भगवद्वीर्यसम्भवात् क्रिया शक्तिरहङ्कारस्त्रिविध सम्पद्यत वैकारिकस्तैजसश्च तामसश्च यतो भव मनसश्चेन्द्रियाणां च भूतानां महतामपि
Mata, you are not well?
Yes, slight throat.
So if it's okay, then someone else can read.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, go ahead. Translation. Who's next?
Raj Prabhu.
Raj Prabhu, didn't you just read?
No, Mataji, it's you.
It's me. Oh, sorry. The material ego springs up from the Mahatattva, which evolved from the Lord's own energy. The material ego is endowed predominantly with active power in three kinds: good, passionate, and ignorant. It is from these three types of material ego that the mind, the senses of perception, the organs of action, and the gross elements evolve.
Okay. So everyone remembers our famous chat? Let me share my screen. So this is our main aspect, right? So we talked of Pradhan, and then so Karnadaksha Vishnu, his glance is carrying what? The aspect of time and the jivas. And where is that impregnated into? Pradhan, right? So we talked about how Pradhan is the womb, and that's where the Lord impregnates the jivas. And then in Pradhan, the modes are present, but they are inactive. But because of the agitation of the work or the karma of the jivas, the Pradhan is agitated to give Mahatattva. Now further, what we are reading in this verse, material ego, ahankar, springs from the Mahatattva. From Mahatattva comes ahankar, right? So that's what we are reading here. And the material ego is endowed predominantly with the active power of three kinds. So there are three kinds in ahankar: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And further it says, it is from these three types of material ego that the mind, right? So mind is produced from the aspect of goodness, that is Jnana Shakti. Then further Prabhupada says the senses of perception. So senses of perception are the 10 senses, which are actually from this aspect of passion, Kriya Shakti, and then the organs of action. And that's also here, organs. So 10 senses are here. And then the gross elements. So gross elements are in the aspect of ignorance through Dravya Shakti. Right? So everyone remembers this chart? We have discussed this twice. 2.5, 3.5. So ahankar in goodness gives rise to mind and 10 sensitivas. Ahankar in the mode of passion through the aspect of Kriya Shakti gives the 10 senses. And then ahankar in mode of ignorance through Dravya Shakti gives the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, and ether. So that's basically what's explained in this verse. Okay, so if you see the Sanskrit also, it says Vaikarikaha, material ego in transformed goodness. That gives the mind. Taijasaha, Taijasaha, material ego in transformed passion. Tamasaha, material ego in transformed ignorance. Okay, so Prabhupada makes the point. So previous verse explain what? Pure consciousness. So now Prabhupada is saying, from pure consciousness, the first contamination began. And what is that contamination? This is called false ego. Identifying with the body. That's the first contamination, right? So that's when the consciousness, which had the pure qualities before, it gets transformed. Right? So Prabhupada makes another point in the purport. He says, it's stated in the Upanishad, is stated therefore that the path of spiritual realization is just like the sharp edge of a razor. The example is very appropriate. One shaves his cheeks with a sharp razor very nicely, but as soon as his attention is diverted from the activity, he immediately cuts his cheek because he mishandles the razor. So, what is Prabhupada saying? That the difference between pure consciousness and impure consciousness is actually just like how I said, the desires are either to serve Krishna or to serve Maya. And as soon as we are little inattentive, immediately we are under Maya. So when we talk of Krishna consciousness, consciousness means what? We have to be aware. We have to always be attentive. That, okay, I want to serve Krishna. My desires are should be to Krishna. As soon as a little inattention, you'll cut your cheek. Blood. And Prabhupada says blood. Blood. So basically that's the point. So spiritual realization is just like a sharp edge of a razor. So not only must one come to the stage of pure Krishna, but one must also be very careful. Any inattentiveness or carelessness may cause fall down. And this fall down is due to false ego.
Prabhuji, I have a question to Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
So I think previously we read that whenever Krishna wants, because of Krishna, like he's sad that all the jivas are not going back to Godhead. We are still have desires, so we went to back to his tummy. But because Krishna is sad that we are there, and then he creates all these universes and gives us the opportunity again to come back to him. But here it says that because of the hesitation of the souls, they are coming. How can we understand both, Prabhu? There, Krishna is like not happy, then he's creating and giving us the opportunity. But
I mean, there's no contradiction, right? In the sense that, yes, it is like Jiva who desires to enjoy separation from Krishna. And that's why Krishna is not happy to actually create this material world. But because the Jivas want it, Krishna is doing the creation. And now we are reading how the creation is happening. So it is only because of the jiva's desire that the creation is there. But how does the creation happen? And how because of the desires, the agitation of the pradhan is actually taking place? It is all finally under Krishna's control. Because what aspect of Krishna is actually controlling everything? The time aspect. We already discussed that earlier. Okay. So Prabhupada makes a point in the purport. He says the second paragraph, he says, one must be okay. This fall down is due to false ego. So why are we here in this material world? Because of ahankar. Ahankar. Right? From the status of pure consciousness, the false ego is born because of misuse of independence. There's always the chance that this will happen, and therefore one has to be very careful. So false ego, ahankar, is our basic existence of in this material world is because of the ahankar. Okay. 25.
सहस्रशिरसं साक्षात् यमनन्तं प्रचक्षते संकर्षणाख्यं पुरुषं भूतेन्द्रियामनोमयम्. I think it's Vamshigopal.
Hare Krishna. The threefold ahankara, the source of gross elements, the senses and the mind, is identical with them because it is their cause. It is known by the name Sankarshana, who is directly Lord Ananta with 1,000 heads. Hare Krishna.
So for last two verses, what are we reading about? Chitta, consciousness. So first we read the pure state of consciousness. Second we read, when will the consciousness get polluted? When does the consciousness get polluted?
By interacting with the material.
When it contacted the material nature.
Okay, but what was the main aspect of the previous verse that actually causes the consciousness to get polluted? Pure consciousness plus dash is equal to contaminated consciousness.
Desire
False
rather
ego.
than Krishna.
False ego. Ahankar. So hence the previous verse talked about ahankar. And then we talked, ahankar, it manifests as mind, senses, and all those things because of ahankar. So hence we are all reading about the consciousness. So last two verses, consciousness, pure consciousness, for consciousness as polluted because of ahankar. And now here, third is actually made the point. Who is the deity to be worshipped to purify our consciousness? Who is that? Here it is actually said, Anantam. Right? Sahasra Shirsham Sakshat Yam Anantam. Right? So it is known by the name of Sankarshan, who is directly Lord Ananta with thousands of heads. So when we worship Sankarshan, who is actually directly Ananta, then we can actually purify our consciousness. Right? And Ahankar is the source of this entire body, right? Because we just read previously, what did we read? That from the Ahankar in goodness, passion, ignorance, we get what? The gross elements, the sense elements, the senses, and the mind. So everything is coming because of ahankar in the three moods. So cause of all that is ahankar. So hence these elements can be considered to be identical to ahankar because ahankar is their cause. Okay. Yes or no, or everyone is like too much. It's okay. Okay. It's 27. Oh, sorry, 26.
कर्तृत्वं करणत्वं च कार्यत्वं चेति लक्षणम् शान्तघोरविमोहत्वम् इति वा स्याद् अहङ्कृते.
Ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull according to how it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Okay, so last three verses on consciousness. Now, next few verses on ahankar. Because we already said pure consciousness plus ahankar is contaminated consciousness. So what is ahankar? Here it says kartitvam, karatatvam, karyatvam. So 3 points. The doer, kartitvam, karanatvam, the instrument, karyatam, the effect. Iti lakshanam. And the further characteristics are shanta ghora vimudatam. Right? So the false ego is characterized by that the sense of doer, the sense of let's see, how does Prabhupada explain this? False ego is characterized as a doer, as an instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to how it is influenced by mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. So when the false ego is influenced by the mode of goodness, it is Shanta. When it is influenced by the mode of passion, it is active or Ghora. When it is influenced by the mode of ignorance, it is Mumudhata, which or being done. Okay. Now this Kartritvam, Karanatvam, and Karyatvam is also, if you remember that chart, right, in the chart, when you talk of Kartritvam, that means the doer. And if you see on the, should I share my screen again? Okay. So if you see in this chart, when you talk of the aspect of Kartritvam, right, the doer, who is controlling the senses? The sense devatas. Right? So that is the aspect of doership. Who is controlling our eyes? Suryadev. Who is controlling our tongue? Varunadev. Right? So all these are controlled by the sense devatas. So the kartritvam or the doership is sense devatas. This is an aspect of ahankar. Now the next aspect is karanatvam. That means instrument. That is basically the subtle senses. Right? So subtle senses are actually the instrument through which the activity is done. And what is the effect karyatvam? The effect is basically these 5 elements. So gross elements of earth, water, fire, and ether. So the 3 aspects of ahankar, kartatvam, karanatvam, and karyatvam, doer, instrument, and effect actually indicate sense devatas, subtle senses, and the 5 elements. Right? And hence corresponding to each, that is the aspect of Shanta, Ghora, and Vimudatma. Shanta for goodness, Ghora for passion, and Vimudatma for ignorance. Okay, so let's go to the next shloka.
वैकारिकात् विकुर्वाणां मनस्तत्त्वम् अजायत यत्सङ्कल्पविकल्पाभ्यां वर्तते कामसम्भवः.
From the false ego of goodness, another transformation takes place. From this evolves the mind, whose thoughts and reflections give rise to desire. Hare Krishna.
Right, so simple. So it says Vaikarika Vikurvana. So transformation of false ego, right? In what? Vaikarika. That means goodness. So transformation of ahankar in goodness gives what? Manaha. Manaha means the mind. What is the function of the mind? Sankalpa, vikalpa. That is a thought and the reflection. Right? And this sankalpa, vikalpa gives rise to kama sambhava. That means all the desires. Right? So all the desires are arising. Why are the desires arising in the living entity? Because of ahankar. And that ahankar in the mode of goodness is giving mind. And the mind is actually in the process of accepting, rejecting, accepting, rejecting. Okay, this is a good car. Oh, but this is not so good. I need something else. Accepting, rejecting, accepting. And because of that, all these desires come into being. Okay. 28.
यद्विदुर्हि अनिरुद्धाख्यां ऋषिकानाम् अधीश्वरं सारदेन्दीवरस्वयामं समाराध्यं योगिभिः शनैः. The mind of the living entity is known by the name of the Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses a bluish-black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. He is found slowly by the yogis.
So who we have to worship to purify our mind? That is mentioned here. Yet we do, right? So the mind of the living entity is known by the name Aniruddha Akhyam. Right? So when you worship Aniruddha, that form of Vishnu, then our mind can be purified. Right? Rishikanam Adhishwaram is the supreme ruler of the senses. He is the mind is a master of all the senses. And the description of Aniruddha, Sharad Indivara means the lotus flower growing in the autumn. Shamam, he possesses a bluish black form. And then he's found slowly by the yogis. Okay, so next sloka is 29.
तैजसात्तु विकुर्वाणां बुद्धितत्त्वम् अभूत् सति द्रव्यस्फुरण विज्ञानम् इन्द्रियाणाम् अनुग्रहः.
By transformation of the false ego in passion, intelligence takes birth, O virtuous lady. The function of intelligence are to help in ascertaining the nature of the objects when they come into view and to help the senses.
Okay. So what is the function of intelligence? This question was there. So what are we reading? So if you see, first we read 3 verses explaining consciousness. Okay. Who wants to say what did we read about consciousness? Consciousness plus what is actually impure consciousness? Ahankar. Right? What is the pure consciousness? The 3 characteristics of serenity, right? So we read about that. Now, after reading consciousness, then we made the point that who is the right. Then after that, we came to the point of Ahankar, right? So what is the aspect of Ahankar we read? Well, the Mahatattva transforms into Ahankar, and Ahankar with its modes of goodness gives rise to the sense devatas, the senses, and the elements. All that is from the Ahankar. And because all these are coming from the Ahankar, they are actually one way considered non-different from Ahankar. Then we read about 27 and 28, the mind. What is the function of the mind? Sankalpa, Vikalpa. Thoughts and reflections, or acceptance, rejection. And who is the presiding in the deity who we need to worship to purify the mind? Aniruddha. Next, intelligence. What are the characteristics of the intelligence? Oh, that's what we are reading. So 29, intelligence. Taijasa to Vikurvana. Taijasa means the mode of passion. Right? So it's interesting that the mind is from the mode of goodness. Intelligence from the mode of passion. So Taijasa Buddhi Tattvam Abhut. So arises the Buddhi Tattva, intelligence. And what is the function of intelligence? Vijnanam Dravya Spurana. Right? To actually ascertain objects when they are in view. Indriyanam Anugrah. And it gives assistance to the senses. So how do we understand this? Intelligence, function of intelligence is to ascertain an objects. Right? So let's say you hear a sound. You hear a sound. Now, when you hear a sound, what happens first? First, the consciousness or the chitta, it actually registers, oh, something happened. Some awareness is there. If there's no chitta, there's no question of awareness. So first there has to be awareness. Oh, something I heard. Right? So that awareness. Oh, actually not heard. Something is there. Some awareness. Right? So that is chitta.
Chitta Prabhu here?
Consciousness.
Okay.
Conscious. Because of consciousness, we know that, okay, oh, something. Right? Now, what is the something? The intelligence. Oh, that was a sound. The intelligence is actually saying, oh, yes, it was a sound. Then what does the mind say? Sankalpa Vikalpa. Oh, I like the sound. I don't like the sound. All right? So that's how everything functions. Like we become aware of something because of consciousness. And then the intelligence, it actually says, oh, this is a sound. This is this. This is that. And then the mind says, I like it. I don't like it. I like it. That's how we interact with the world. So that is the function of intelligence. So intelligence is like when you realize, oh, this is sound. So hence it says, certain objects when they are in view. When something comes, either behind us some sound, something, immediately we are like, oh, something, right? Oh, sound, right? I smell something. Oh, some smell is coming. Right? So because of the intelligence identifies that, oh, this is a smell, this is a sound, right? This is this. This object is of this color. All that is intelligence.
So the first thing that interacts is the senses, right, Prabhu?
No, senses comes later. Just first is the awareness.
But the senses does the smell.
Prabhuji, if the body is not alive, the sense cannot smell it. That is the point of consciousness means.
Exactly, yeah. Like a dead body, you can go and bang next to it. It's not affected.
Right, but after the consciousness will come the senses, right? Then it'll go to then it'll
No.
say,
After
the
the
mind will say,
consciousness, then let's say sound, right? Some sound is there. Because of consciousness, we are recognizing something is there. Then
Correct.
first the intelligence has to say, oh, actually this is a sound. And then the ears will actually accept this, will recognize that as this sound. And then the mind will say, oh, I like it, I don't like it.
But doesn't like the intelligent own, so mind says good or bad. Mind will take the decision good or bad, but then the intelligence will come in, and because we have cultivated the intelligence, it will say it's like it can either agree with the mind, or it can say no, it is definitely a good sound, something like that.
So your point is, okay, consciousness is the first thing, right? For sure.
Correct.
Second, you're saying is what?
The senses will accept. So if I hear a sound, the ears will start reacting and say, okay, I'm hearing a sound. But then that sound gets registered in the mind, because the mind is the storehouse, and it says, okay, this sound seems like a horn, or it seems like something. It tries to make and indicate what sort of sound it is. And then the intelligence will come in and say, yes, I agree that it is the sound of a horn. Would that?
Okay, so that's not how it is explained here. In the sense
Oh.
that when something happens, yes, okay, we agree on the point of consciousness has to be there without that.
Yes.
But then something happens. How do we know it is a sound or a smell or something to see?
That's where the sense organs will, those
Yeah,
are the
but
windows.
see, now senses is already like the nose has only function until smell. But who's going to decide that, okay, now it is something happened, but that smell the sense has to smell it.
Because
So
those are the windows.
yeah, windows. But it is actually, and so here it is actually explained that the intelligence, by buddhi, one realizes, oh, it is a sound, and then the ear actually accepts that.
Isn't it the intelligence that will do the accepting? The mind will only say this or that, accept or reject. And then the intelligence will just accept that, because depending on how knowledgeable that how well we have cultivated that intelligence.
Prabhu, Mataji, I think the senses are just a channel. They don't perceive anything. It's
Right,
just a
right.
channel.
It's just a window.
pipe.
So
Yeah.
this verse
Agree.
is saying, so this verse
Yeah,
is
the
saying what?
comes from the intelligence.
Indriyanam anugraha. Intelligence is giving assistance to the senses. Right? So 2 points are saying.
Senses, yeah.
Vigyanam dravya spurana. As certain objects when they are in view. Indriyanam anugraha. And that's how it is assisting the senses. Right? So go ahead, Devindrati.
Prabhuji, I think the chariot example will give us good understanding. The senses are controlled by the intelligence, and intelligence is controlled by the mind. Isn't that? The chariot, if you take the chariot picture, that's what initially we were.
It is senses, mind, then intelligence, then soul, right?
No,
In the
Mataji, senses
chariot.
are controlled by the intelligence controls the senses, and mind controls the intelligence. Isn't that, Prabhu? The chariot example, if you take that.
No, the mind is the senses
Reins.
are in touch with the mind. The mind is the reins. The intelligence is Krishna in this case, right? So it comes beyond after that.
And let's not go to the chariot example in the sense that chariot example is how we interact with the world, the horses, the senses are pulled to different objects. Now, in that illustration, okay, chariot, then reins, and then intelligence. So in that, why is the chariot example given? That, okay, the senses are pulled to a particular object, and then the mind should actually, the mind actually says, okay, I like it, I don't like it. And the intelligence should actually come into play and say, like, even though it seems good, it's not good for me, so hence I reject it. Okay. So So that is one aspect. The other aspect is when the sense comes in contact with the sense object. How is the sense actually coming in contact with the sense object? First of all, there has to be consciousness. Otherwise, the sense will not even see the sense object.
Right.
Now, even for the sense to actually recognize that, oh, this is this, that is the aspect of the intelligence which is there. So this is not the chariot example where we are seeing, okay, should I select or not? There is an aspect of intelligence which is assisting the sense to actually see, oh, this is a sound, this is a smell, this is this is this. And then later on, the mind will actually, so the intelligence assist, so hence is recognize, oh, this is a sound. And then the sense is like, okay, this is how the sound is processed. Now the mind will again enter, and then the intelligence will again come into play and say, oh, actually, I should not hear this because too loud it will hurt my ear. Right?
So intelligence plays a
has
role twice.
twice.
That's what you're saying.
role
Okay.
initially to assist the senses, and that's why this verse is saying to actually
Okay.
identify, oh, this is a sound, oh, this is this. And later on, then that discrimination power. So if you see in the next shloka, it talks of further qualities of intelligence. Let's just read that 30, and maybe that will give some more clarity.
संशयूथ विपर्यासो निश्चय स्मृतिरेव च स्वाप इत्युच्यते बुद्धिर्लक्षणं वृत्तितः पृथक्.
Okay, translation.
Gopinath.
A doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence.
Right. So here further characteristics of intelligence are doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension. So this was the point, so when there is something in the environment, then the intelligence is actually, has the viparya and nishchaya. Misapprehension, or it correctly apprehends, oh, it's a sound, let me hear it. So first intelligence plays. Then beyond that, then intelligence may have like, oh, was it really a sound? Doubt. Again, characteristics of intelligence. Did you hear something? People will ask. Say, no, I did not hear anything. So that aspect, that intelligence is assisting the sense initially to actually even recognize, oh, there's a sound, that is this, right? So hence that aspect of misapprehension or correct apprehension. Then doubt, oh, I did not hear anything. Or maybe I heard, that thought. And then smriti, memory comes from intelligence, and then swapa, that is sleep. So important function of intelligence is doubt. Okay, so we'll explain each one of them next time. But does that
Prabhu, I just want to say that Mataji, how do you say, say suppose you're a small child, you have no awareness of anything, how we have small children. They take up an object and try to taste it, right? That's how they create a image of that object. So suppose there comes intelligence. There is no senses working at that time. Nothing is working for them. So I'm just trying to say, like, how suppose if I give you an object, you have zero idea, never ever seen that. How do you perceive that object? Is your intelligence working? You would like to taste it, you would like to, squish it, or you might want to make some sound of it. That is your intelligence working at that time. None of your senses are working.
Yes.
Everybody is trying to understand. So then see how this intelligence is actually helping the senses to understand an object. And that is what interaction with material energy of Atma or Chitta means.
Very nice. I think Mati very nicely explained that, once object is there, now how do we know which sense is going to interact with it? Right? You may see an object that is eatable, but there is some intelligence saying that, oh, this is eatable, let me take and put it in my mouth and taste it.
But Prabhuji, let's say somebody doesn't have eyes. Then they're not, even if they have intelligence, they're not going to know what is in front of them
exactly.
because they don't have that window.
Yeah, so we are not denying the aspect of sense. Sense has to be there. to recognize something. But our point is the intelligence is assisting the sense.
Assisting.
Okay,
That makes more sense. Yes,
this sense has to be
absolutely.
now engaged to actually recognize this object.
Yes. Okay. The aspect that the intelligence plays a role at multiple steps
Yeah.
of the process, that kind of gives it more clarity
Yeah.
rather than just saying that intelligence comes way at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That-
the fact that we should not be looking at this with respect to the chariot, because then in the chariot, the intelligence is way at the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here we are saying that intelligence can play a role in different at different levels.
That's good. Yeah. That explains.
Thank you, Prabhu. Appreciate it.
Okay. I think we'll stop here. So Prabhupada in this purport explains each of this: doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, sleep.
Prabhu, we need the same class repeat next Sunday, please.
Same class repeat?
All of us agree to it. Yes or no?
What do you mean repeat? Again, go back
The
to
whole thing
Oh.
back.
Anyway, the thing
Yeah,
interesting.
it's interesting and difficult to comprehend also. So
So anyway, my aim was to cover till chapter text number 60 into this class, and we did like 15 shlokas. Anyway, that's fine.
Prabhuji, I feel we should not take a break because we should go up to a certain level, then
Yeah.
maybe go back, because if
Yeah.
we stop here, it's almost like what's next, right? There's this question like why is
So we'll
there only doubt and misapprehension, whatever.
So we'll we'll continue, and then I'll also summarize. So once we come through the next elements, like because we are going to talk of each one. Okay, what is taste? What is water? Smell? What is earth? All those will be explained, and those will be a little faster because now we are discussing the subtle elements, which is hard for us to understand. Hence, it's so complicated. But then when we come to like sound, ether, touch, air, form, it's easier. So we'll discuss all those. And once we discuss that whole thing, then we'll come back and review from starting that what was Sankhya from starting till this point. We'll do a quick revision and then we'll continue. Okay. Okay, so thank you all. I think it was nice to have all your interactions and questions, and so it makes it more enlivening, and it makes us think that, okay, what is this in Bhagavatam? So please keep your questions and interactions coming, and we'll stop here. Continue next week.
Thank you for entertaining those questions and interactions, Prabhu. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So everyone, should we practice the process of Sankhya Yoga? Imagine like the process Sankhya Yoga means that's what they are doing. They're just doing this analysis, right? And hence in Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? I have explained to you knowledge in terms of analysis, analytical study of the elements. Mhm. But then he says, okay, now I will tell how to work in devotion. And then Arjun, what does he say? Should I work in devotion or should I take analytical study? He said, no, both will reach finally to the same point. But for you, work in devotion. Do bhakti yoga. Right? So that's the main key. But we need to understand, and that's the whole point that Kapila Dev is actually explaining. And certain aspects of this, like it's not that we are pursuing the path of Sankhya, but when we are attracted to something which is, not worth that attraction, then we can actually say, finally, if you break down, these are just elements. Like if you just consider how they came into existence. I mean, it is only Prakriti, Mahat Tattva from Mahat Tattva, because of certain desires, these elements have come. But finally, it has nothing to do with Krishna, to who I really am. It's all just combination of dead matter, and that's to bring us that point of detachment, which will come as a result of bhakti. But at the same time, when we are interacting with elements, we can actually consider this knowledge that we are learning and saying, oh, this is just material. I need some. So anyway, and every shloka in Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. So you have to see that in that light. So thank you all so much for your association. And thank you everyone for joining.
would just
And
wanna-
each one of you, like,
Sorry.
thank you, Mohan Prabhu, Long Manjari Mataji, everyone. Thank you for your association. Okay, yes,
Prabhu, just want to finish with a sweeter note of the 25 verses. The threefold ahankar, the source of gross elements, the senses and the mind, and identical to them as the cause. The Lord is Sankarshan, who is also the Lord Ananta. And we know that Balaram is the source of Sankarshan and Ananta, right?
Yeah.
We go back to Balaram pastime. He killed Dhenukasura, who represents gross intelligence.
That's a good point.
So
That's a
see
very nice
how,
point. Yeah, that's very nice point. The Dhenukasura.
and also Pralambasura, whose lusty inclinations, which resides in the subtle senses.
Yeah.
Exactly, Mataji, I about to say that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So let's worship Krishna Balaram.
that's why Krishna Balaram.
Thank you. Very nice point. Okay, so thank you so much.